Hey everybody, welcome back to the NC State Insider Podcast. I'm your host and lead beat writer for NC State on SI, Tucker Sennett, coming to you the day after, morning after NC State beat ECU in the season opener, 24-17 victory in that game. Really, really solid performance from a lot of guys. Obviously not the score result that they were probably hoping for, but a victory nonetheless in the season opener, and the Wolfpack is off to the races in 2025. I figured it would be helpful to go through some of the impact performers from the game. So I have three on offense and three on defense. And just in case you missed the game, missed parts of the game, I'll just give you sort of the rundown on who did what today. And obviously we'll get into it a little more in depth as the weekend goes on, and we have more time to process what went down last night. So we'll start with the quarterback on offense. CJ Bailey had a pretty solid start to his sophomore campaign. Completed 24 of his 34 pass attempts for 318 yards and a touchdown. He did throw an interception, although he made up for it with another rushing touchdown as well, an 11-yard rush. He looked really solid, really good to start the game. He was getting the ball out quickly. This offense was humming a little bit, and it just there were some red zone issues where things kind of stalled out. His rushing touchdown was far and away the best red zone possession. He punched it in on an 11-yard design run to the right side, kind of bobbing and weaving through his offensive line. And he established some good chemistry with a pair of receivers who both played well, there are the other impact players on offense. So we'll get into them in a second, but he just seemed to be very comfortable as a sophomore, except for when the pressure got to him, which was a big problem last year, and looks to be a continuing issue going into his sophomore season. Something that can be cleaned up, and the protection was sort of a little messed up with some shifts of personnel on the offensive line over the course of the game. So that certainly affected him. And he didn't get the job done at the end of the game when they needed to punch it in to put things away. But overall, it was a very solid effort. And had the field goal kicking been a little bit better, some of the blame would have been shifted away from him. The receivers that stood out were really good last night. Wesley Grimes had a breakout performance with four catches for 121 yards and a touchdown. And it was just he showcased that speed, and his 48-yard touchdown catch was sort of the perfect encapsulation of everything that they've been talking about with him throughout the offseason. He just burned his defender on a post route, and Bailey threw a beautiful deep ball that just carved the middle of this ECU defense for a big touchdown. And Grimes was just cool, calm, and collected, really good body control on a couple of those catches, and a really solid performance. And then freshman receiver Teddy Hoffman made a name for himself pretty quickly. He had four catches on one drive. I think it was three in a row at one point. Bailey and him have talked a lot about their chemistry, both being from South Florida, and we have an article coming out about that tomorrow. That connection really burgeoning into something pretty special. He had a really big 50-yard catch in the fourth quarter that looked like it was going to hopefully break the game open and lock things up for the Wolfpack, but they couldn't punch it in on that drive, and it sort of stalled after his big catch. But he adjusted midair, came back for the ball, hauled it in for 50 yards. It was a really strong play for a freshman who only has been in college since last January. So those guys on offense were really strong in a game that was sort of disjointed in terms of its flow. NC State controlled the ball a lot in the first half, in the first quarter. had some nice drives, and then sort of sputtered late second quarter, regained its footing in the third quarter, then sputtered again in the fourth quarter, and the kicking game was a big part of that. Really, really poor performance from redshirt freshman kicker Nick Konachensky, who was sort of thrust into that starting place kicker role and struggled. He was not good, but that's a conversation for a different day. Defensively, DJ Elliott's defense looked really really solid in game one. He ran with that multiple look scheme, a lot of different things coming at ECU throughout this game, different fronts, and we'll get into a little more depth as to how that could be a blessing and a curse moving forward for NC State. But last night it was really good, and as soon as ECU crossed the 50, some of these players really rose up and locked them down. They had several they forced several turnovers on downs throughout the game, including the game winner or the game winning play, which came from defensive back Jamel Johnson in the fourth quarter. Johnson made a huge tackle on a fourth and short to turn the Pirates over on downs and get the ball for his team. He had a really solid game, as did some of the corners, but I just figured I'd point him out because of that game-winning tackle, and because he came from Temple, wanted to sort of get some revenge on ECU after they beat the his team last year, and he got it with that game-winning play. The other standouts, Caden Fordham, he earned that number one number last night, had 11 tackles and a sack, two tackles for loss, flying around in that defense in that sort of hybrid extra linebacker role that he plays alongside middle linebacker Sean Brown. And it was I'm sure refreshing for a lot of Wolfpack fans to have him back in the lineup, sort of patrolling the middle there and stopping the run, which was such a major issue for the NC State defense last year. And then defensive end Sebastian Harsh um, had a really strong debut. He got the start at defensive end after, sort of a competition throughout camp, earned it. Had seven tackles, two and a half tackles for loss. But really, what stood out was his ability to put some pressure on ECU quarterback Caden Hauser throughout the game. He had him under siege. Kean Sloan on the other side and moving around in that they call it the jack. But he's really just a hybrid linebacker edge rusher that can he can slide in next to Harsh. He can slide in on the other side. He can go inside outside. He does a lot. But Harsh and him sort of wreaked havoc on Hauser in that first half, especially. There was a point where ECU had not gained a yard. They had negative yardage through the first three or four drives of the game. So the defense was just phenomenal early in the first half. And some things changed over the course of the game. Game flow allowed them to get back in it. And they have a pretty quarterback friendly system where Hauser was able to get the ball out very quickly and just sort of dice them up a little bit. But it certainly there was a lot of reason for optimism, particularly because of these three guys. And there's a lot of things to be optimistic about moving forward. The schedule continues to be pretty forgiving. You got Virginia. Now you have a long week to prepare for them. Can take a day today, recover, do what you need to do. Watch that Virginia game tomorrow. They have Coastal Carolina in their opener, and really just focus on the preparation one game at a time. This NC State team, um, they get to do that now. Doran, Dave Doran gets to watch Lee Corso one more time. He talked about that earlier in the week. He's excited to see that, and this was a really solid start. I think in terms of consistency, at least on the defensive side, I think Fordham and Harsh can be impact contributors every week. Johnson, obviously, different because he's a defensive back. He's, sort of at the mercy of what the other team wants to do. And Bailey, if he can fix some of those pressure issues, he could the sophomore leap is there. There were signs of it yesterday, and with these receivers that he clearly trusts, it could be in the cards. That's all we got today. Obviously, some more analysis of this game coming in the coming days over the weekend. We'll be talking about this one for a while. We got more than a week until the next game, so we won't dive into Virginia too much until we get a little bit closer to that matchup. Apologies for the delay on this recap. Just sort of a hectic night with the Thursday night kickoff, but here you are. As always, thanks for tuning in to the NC State Insider Podcast. You feel free to follow me on Twitter at Senate Tucker, as well as the website Twitter page at Wolfpack on SI. Also follow the website's Facebook, NC State on SI Facebook, Wolfpack on SI Facebook, for more content throughout the coming days about this week one 24-17 victory over ECU. As always, thanks again for tuning in. Hope you have a wonderful Labor Day weekend.